Andre with Connected Roots, the head therapist, is here today with a super special interview with my pops, Brian Andre, who was the first interview on this quality podcast. So we are going back 6 months to now. Let's check in with Brian, see how he's doing, see where his journey's been with ALS in the past 6 months. Brian, if you could, just tell us how you're feeling, where you're at, what's new with you, and we'll get going.
I'm feeling great, honey. No problems here. I'm still pretty much the same as I was when you talked to me several months ago.
That's a great sign. I think thumbs up, people. We got to celebrate that. You know, it's not regular that someone with ALS can feel the same within 6 months, and that's the truth. I know that.
I know that you're fortunate one.
Yes, absolutely fortunate, and I know there's a lot of people out there who are still, struggling in the space of progression and what that looks like. So amazing, super stoked, hashtag blessed that you are feeling well. So down at the bottom here, we have a little hashtag, and it says Cures for All. Could you talk about what Cures for All is, Brian, in the next element of what that looks like?
Sure. So, my foundation, or our foundation, is I Am ALS. The I Am ALS Foundation is trying to raise as much awareness as possible of ALS and all of the other neurodegenerative diseases that affect people here and around the world. Because really, a lot of these diseases have share some similarities. We feel that the research into one needs to be shared by all, and that's definitely part of our mission, is to make sure that in the realm of neurodegenerative disease research, that we're all working together. We're working with all the other organizations in all of those disease fields, and Cures for All is just a continuation of that. What Cures for All actually is, hashtag Cures for All, is that on Tuesday, December 17th, we, as a group, I Am ALS, are taking over Times Square. We're going to be on the big screen, and we're taking over. And between the hours of 8 and 9 a.m. Eastern on Tuesday, December 17th, we're going to have a big FU to ALS gathering. And, we hope everyone will follow us, whether that's on YouTube or I don't know if maybe the Today Show or someone like that's going to be covering. Also, of course, on the I Am ALS site and other sites. And we're just doing this gathering to raise awareness for ALS and the other neurodegenerative diseases and all that's currently going on in those fields of research and how we're leading the fight to find cures for ALS and the other diseases. So it should be a great event.
That's pretty badass that you're going to be at Times Square on a big screen with an organization that's only been around just a year.
Yeah, a little over a year now. We've grown. We started with a handful of people, all patients and caregivers, as I've told you in our last interview. We are a patient-led, patient-centric organization. And we've grown our organization to now, 70 or 80 people who are now involved in the core operations. And it's just incredible what's been happening over the course of this year.
That's insane. Yeah. Really, really insane. It's inspiring. I mean, to be able to grow something from a grassroots moment to now where it is, to raising awareness and all the accomplishments you've achieved in such a short period of time. Could you talk to some of those accomplishments?
No, absolutely.
I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, we've been making some real strides. So, one of the things that your mom and I got to do is we got to go with some of our core members a few months back to Washington, D.C., where we met with the heads of the FDA in ongoing advocacy that we've been carrying on through our organization. And we got them to do something that's very important. So it's a little esoteric sounding, but I'm going to give it to you as quickly as I can. There is something called a guidance document. And what it does is it lays out the way in which you're allowed to conduct drug trials. So we had an issue in ALS. We have an issue in ALS and other neurodegenerative diseases where, our projected lifespan once we're diagnosed is only 3 to 5 years on average. And to go through a phase 1 through 4 drug trial to bring a new drug to market, assuming it proves to be efficacious through the trial, that's a years-long process. I mean, it can take longer than the average lifespan of a patient, and therefore we needed to work with scientists and researchers to try to speed up the progress of those trials. And what the guidance document lays out, once we and other people in the advocacy field were done working with the FDA, we got them to move the guidance to allow what's called platform trials. And what you can do with a platform trial, in a nutshell, without going into detail, is
you can go into detail if you want.
Well, okay. I mean, you can now, instead of just taking one drug at a time in a trial, stage 1 through 4, over many years, you can now test in what they call a platform trial multiple drugs at the same time, with a lot more patients involved. You can have fewer patients have to be on the placebos, and you can get results, possibly as much as 30 to 35% quicker than you can with regular single drug trials. So we're very excited. It's the new development in the field of doing research and drug trials in the ALS and other neurodegenerative disease space. So we felt like we were instrumental. Our lobbying efforts were instrumental. The FDA came out with that document, that guidance document, which is favorable to these new kinds of standards for trials, and we're very excited about that. That was one of our accomplishments. Yeah, no, it's really important.
That's incredible.
The other thing we were able to do is advocating in Congress for additional funding. We got, I believe it was through the Department of Defense, actually, and the reason being that the Department of Defense is involved is that in the ALS community, combat veterans are much more highly susceptible to coming down with ALS. Nobody really knows why, but it's a group of people that are more susceptible to being diagnosed with the disease. And Department of Defense allocated an additional $10 million in their budget towards ALS research. And we were instrumental in helping to advocate for that. And another big push we have going on is the creation in Congress of the ALS caucus, which are Congress people who are signing up to be advocates in the fight for more funding for ALS. And currently we have 70 members of Congress signed up to be part of the ALS caucus. We have a goal before the end of the year of reaching 100 members of Congress to be joined as members of the Congressional ALS Caucus. So we've been lobbying towards that as well. So a lot has been going on. In addition, we've also been able to reach some major donors for fundraising. And of course, we continue to attract more and more individual donors through the IMALS portals, through our website and such. So fundraising, which is, very difficult and so important, has been ongoing, and we've had some successes there as well. So we're really excited on a lot of fronts.
Yeah. Okay. I got to ask, are you a part of these new platform drug trials?
So this is really brand new, and my doctor at Massachusetts General Hospital, Merritt Sawich, is the one who is leading. She's a leading person in the world on ALS research, and she is leading this first ever platform trial for ALS, starting through Mass General. I think it's also going to be at some other centers around the country joining in, and possibly here in Chicago Northwestern might be one of the centers, maybe out in LA. I'm not really positive what all the centers are that will be taking part, but it's actually going to allow for hundreds of ALS patients to be part of this study. It's going to carry as many as 5 different investigational new drugs for ALS. And it's just very exciting. It's a brand new thing. This is the first of its kind in the ALS field. So it's just getting going now. Whether or not that I will be participating, I can't tell you yet. I don't even know which the drugs are, what the guidelines are for who would be eligible to participate or most likely to respond to these particular drugs. I'm not sure yet, but I'll keep you posted on that as I find out more.
Yeah, because I mean, ALS, it seems like from what I know from your experience and everybody else's, it just presents so differently. Regression can be so differently. So
yeah, absolutely. We're not even sure if it's one disease or a combination of many diseases. Like you say, it strikes people differently. People react to it differently. Their progression, it's so various, and that's why it's so important to have this new model of study for trials, because they can test so many different drugs at once. They can determine, which group of the participants are responding to a particular drug that is, centered on a particular pathway of investigation for combating the disease. And they can switch people, I think, to the different ways that they're responding best. And fewer people have to be on placebo with the way that they organize these studies. So it's really an exciting time now for investigating new drugs and treatments for ALS.
Yeah, and it seems like if this trial period goes well, or this, this idea that ALS is creating within the community with Congress people and all that stuff, and donations and money, like it can be translated to other diseases that we're not so sure about as well, other than the neurodegenerative.
No, it's absolutely. First of all, there are many neurodegenerative diseases that share some similarities with ALS. There's Parkinson's, there's Huntington's, there's MD, MS,
right,
Alzheimer's, blah blah blah, on and on. The research, part of our mission at IMLS is to make sure that research that may be pertinent from one neurodegenerative disease to another is shared, amongst all the researchers, scientists, clinicians. Everyone needs to be sharing. Being in individual silos, having blinders on just isn't going to work in our view. We really need to see the community of people affected by these diseases demand that the data is shared, across all platforms, and any leaps forward in one, can help the other diseases as far as that investigation is concerned. So that's a big push for IMALS.
I mean, yeah, it seems like what you're doing is really inspiring. I think a lot of other people to do more in the medical field, and in general, like bringing people and community together and having like a free landing page that people can access. I mean, I haven't heard of anything else like this in my.
Yeah, I mean that's what we identified as the needs for the ALS community and the community of people affected by neurodegenerative diseases in general. So, that's our mission. That's why we're here, why we created IMALS, and what we're working so hard in all these various partnerships to do.
It's amazing. I mean, so with $10 million, what do we do? Like what?
Well, first let me say that.
What does that look like?
It's a great number, because I think it more or less doubled what they had previously, put aside for that research. But that's the top. That's the positive. The negative, it's still a drop in the bucket. It really is. When you think about the great work that's been done in research and development for diseases like cancer and for HIV/AIDS, and the great results they've gotten, through those investigations to combat those diseases. This is really just the beginning. It's really just the first drops in the bucket. We need to do a whole lot more. We need to do a whole lot more with awareness of the disease for the general public. And there needs to be just a lot more money put towards these diseases. It's really in its infancy right now. We're still woefully underfunded when it comes to money towards research. So that's something that's ongoing, that will continue.
Which $10 million to me seems like a shit ton of money.
Yeah, for you and me, right.
I
But
mean,
literally, you might look at, what over the years has been contributed to the fight against, let's say, HIV, AIDS, or cancer, various types, and that's probably you're using the B word as opposed to the M word for the amounts of money, that has been put towards research, and that's what it takes. I mean, this is really difficult scientific investigation, and it was so great with HIV/AIDS. They were able to identify a virus as the causal mechanism of the disease, and we don't have that kind of a target. We just don't know what causes ALS. There are many pathways being investigated, and with all these neurodegenerative diseases, the brain and the nervous system are such highly complex systems.
Right.
And level of understanding, even by our greatest scientists, is still very minimal, and it's ongoing, and it requires a lot of research and work, and that just requires a lot of money behind the effort. So we're still woefully underfunded, in truth, and we appreciate every baby step we can take, and we'd be gladly take giant leaps if there's donors out there, please. But every little bit counts, and we're looking for help anywhere we can find it in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, can you name some of the people that have helped? The accomplishments.
I don't know what.
For God's sakes.
There are people out there. I'm not sure how. Do they want to be identified? I'm not sure. I'd probably have to talk with the upper echelons of the IMALS group to see if they want me to spread the word particularly.
Well, the People magazine is out there. It's real. So Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah. Right. Yeah. We know that. That's
actually that was the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation.
Right.
Made a very beautiful contribution.
$450,000 or something like that.
So we've gotten other contributions. I know in our industry.
Nice.
Our buddy Steve Madden made a beautiful contribution, and we're making contacts all the time. Your mother actually was in New York this week, talking to some other bigwigs in our industry, and that's just our industry because that's the industry we're involved in all our lives. But there's a lot of money out there in the world, and we just have to find ways to get it directed towards research for ALS.
Absolutely. So how would you encourage people to fuck ALS?
Well, I thought this was going to be a PG.
Well, I can't. Well, now it's in the title. We have to bring it up,
Yeah, I am a grandpa. I have a grandson. I can't have him listening to this.
Okay.
So we can say ALS. We again, where our next big event is in Times Square, the Cures for All event in Times Square. I encourage people to visit us at the IMALS website or hashtag IMALS to follow us. You can join us. You can contribute. You can follow. You can tell your friends about it. You'd be surprised how many people actually know somebody who's affected by the disease. Once you start talking about it, it sort of comes out of the shadows, and you find out that somebody's dad unfortunately died from ALS, or someone's friend's, mother has ALS, or whatever. And that's a big step. Just awareness of the disease, getting the word out about the disease, about the needs of people with the disease, and the needs for money for research. You'd be surprised. A lot of people still don't know what ALS is. So that's a big part of it, getting the word out.
So how do you get that word out? I mean, other than what you're doing right now, like globally, nationally, because, Chicago's like the hub, right? Because that's where you are. That's where people are. That's where a lot of the founders are.
I mean, Chicago happens to be the, where we formed IMALS. Our offices actually are in Washington, D.C. But, in the East Coast, Massachusetts General Hospital and what they call the NEALS Consortium, which is a group of researchers and hospitals and medical providers, in the Northeast, including Massachusetts General Hospital. That's a big center of it, and there's centers of it, West Coast here in the Midwest, Northwestern, and U of C, and Russian UIC, and and it's all over the world. I mean, honestly, there's investigation going on all over the world, and if more people would just take the time to talk about it and find some interest in it, and check, come to IMALS, and we can lead you to all sorts of websites and information, depending on what your interest might be, to learn more about the disease and the needs of the ALS community and what you can do to help, because there's many ways you can help. We've just started, actually. I think it's up on our IMALS site now. Ideas, for how you can host a fundraising event. Ideas.
Oh, wonderful!
You can spread the word, to educate the public about ALS. Starting with your friends and family and other people. So there's lots of outlets out there. We just have to get people connected and start talking about it.
I love that idea of like hosting fundraisers or getting people involved, like in another grassroots way within their own communities. I think that's so special and could really, catapult the funds and just the awareness. I mean, awareness is, like you keep on saying, awareness is the biggest thing.
Yeah, awareness.
I talk about that regularly. It's about the mental health too. I mean, mental health and ALS and any disease are so, connected.
Well, I mean, people, when they're given a diagnosis of ALS, and this connects to what you and Lauren do and your community and your work, it's a very, very frightening and disheartening and emotionally, physically disabling. Of course, it can become physically disabling as the progression of disease continues, but it's so emotionally and mentally disabling for people, even before there is any physical disabling, because it's so frightening, so scary. And people who are diagnosed with ALS, of course, have to so often seek emotional support professionally, and that's where your work would directly tie in to the fight for helping people battle ALS. So,
yeah, we need to get more practitioners on board, and mental health professionals spreading this awareness as well.
No, absolutely. And we have, for instance, the Les Turner Foundation here in Chicago, who teams up with our Lewis and Solio Clinic for ALS at Northwestern. I mean, they have social workers, of course, as part of their team, and it's a lot of people require that sort of support, understandably. So that's very important.
Hugely important.
The work you do is very important, honey.
Yeah, we're trying. We need to be able to tap. I think as practitioners, we get set on working with a specific client that we know we like and we know that is good for us. Yet we need to tap into these other avenues of working with people who, do have diseases, life-threatening diseases. I think, the hospitals and programs do a fine job, but, it's like even creating more awareness in the sense of how we can do that as private practitioners, because, a lot of that work's done in, the VAs or the public hospital.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, VA for sure, because again, with combat veterans, having a higher incidence of disease, and the social workers, there's a lot of important work that therapy is going to bring to the community of people who are affected by these neurodegenerative diseases, because it's very frightening, it's very debilitating, and for their family and caregivers as well. From your community of practitioners as well, because it's just a very, very difficult to deal with the impacts, the emotional as well as the physical impacts of these diseases on the families. So the work you guys would do would be very important.
Totally. Yeah, and I think that's just a great place to wrap up for the day. Really appreciate you being on, obviously, always, forever. and your vulnerability and expressing where you're at, where everything is going. Shout out again, December 17th, the day after my birthday.
That's right. Don't forget the Mad Hatter of Chatter's birthday, guys.
Don't forget my birthday. That's right. Yeah, I wish I could be there. I'm going to be in Seattle, but I'd love to see that. Super stoked to see what that comes to ahead.
If you wake up at 5 a.m. when you're in Seattle.
Yeah, totally. Not gonna happen.
You do most days, right? Just
absolutely. You called it. Super stoked about all the things IMLS has done. I mean, in just a year, this organization has created so much impact within the world of ALS and for people dear to my heart that I know. So I know this affects people out there. I know creating awareness and getting this out there is such a big part of it. So brioche, French toast, I appreciate you being here this morning and letting me know what's been going on. Love you dearly. The Headed Therapist is out. Peace up, people. Catch you later.
Ciao, ciao.